right, so I believe that if you are here taking this class, it means that you have a prior knowledge to front-end development. And if you don't, it's totally okay. You don't have to panic. Yeah, you find your way around, right? So like I mentioned earlier, today's class will be getting started with Starknet frontend, right? How to build dApps, right? Front-end dApps on Starknet. Aware that you guys have been writing your smart contract, I think in Cairo and all of that, yeah? So we will basically be looking at how to join them together to build a dApp. All right, so one of the most important things you need to know when building front-end applications or dApps in Starknet is the Starknet.js library. So this Starknet.js library is an open source JavaScript TypeScript library, right? That allows developers to interact with the Starknet blockchain, right? So without this, you can't really interact with the Starknet blockchain on the front end, right? So this was started out by Sharon, all thanks to him, right? So most of what we'll be covering today will be around the Starknet.js library. So we have like some key concepts in Starknet.js that I believe everybody should know as a front-end developer, right? Or whoever is looking out to build front-end dApps on Starknet. So some of the key concepts, we're going to cover some of the important key concepts, right? And the first on the list is the provider. I hope you all can hear me. Please, if you have a question or anything, don't hesitate to just notify me or something, right? Okay. So the first on the list is the provider. Now, the provider is like a window, right, to the Starknet blockchain from your front end. So with the provider, you can make read calls to the Starknet blockchain. So you can't modify, you cannot sign, you cannot modify the blockchain with the provider, but the provider helps you to read from the blockchain, right? So that is the main or the primary goal of the provider. And if you could see the screenshot I added below, this is basically how you instantiate a provider, right? So we have the new RPC provider, then you pass in your node URL, right? So it could be DevNet, it could be Sepolia or Mainnet, right? So that's like your node URL. And like I said, we use the provider to make calls to the blockchain, to the Starknet blockchain, right? And remember, you cannot use the provider to write to the blockchain or modify the blockchain. All right. So that's the first we have on the list. And the second is the signer. So the signer is an API, just like the provider, that allows you to sign messages, right? Enables you to write to the blockchain, unlike the provider that you only read, right, with the provider. But with the signer, you can write to the blockchain, right? So I believe that when you're building a dApp or on Starknet or any of the blockchains, some of the things that we will do, right, or we always do is reading and writing. So now you know that, so your provider is responsible for reading, and your signer is responsible for writing to the blockchain, right? Modifying the blockchain, changing, basically modifying, changing, whatever it is, altering. The signer is responsible for that. And the screenshots we have below, you could see how to also instantiate a signer, right? And you can also get the public key from the signer. So this is not really something you should, the code is not something you should really pay much attention to right now. We're going to look at that in a short while, but just have the concept, know what the signer is used for. So when you see that, you don't get confused or it doesn't look strange to you, basically. Now, that is the second concept in Starknet.js that I feel and I know that every front-end dev should know what it does, right? And be very familiar with that. So the third we have on the list is the account. Now, this is an extension of the provider API and also the signer, right? So this can be used to verify signatures, right? It's just, um, how do I put it? It comprises of the provider and then the signer. So when you are signing transactions on applications like your agents and Bravos, you are using the accounts, right, to sign all those things. So you're not just depending on, okay, let's say the provider to read a loan or the signer to write a loan, right? So the accounts can read and also write to the Starknet blockchain. So basically that is it. We have the provider, we have the signer, the account, which is an extension of the provider, and also the signer API combined together that you can use to read from the blockchain and also write to the blockchain. So when you know that your dApp has nothing to do with signing of transactions, you can just focus on using the provider, right? And all of that. Any question? Can you guys still hear me? Okay, all right. So I want to believe that there are no questions. Okay, all right. So that's it for the accounts, right? That's the third key concept in Starknet.js, right? And then the next is the contract. So the contract is basically is also a window, right, that you could use to interact with a specific contract on the blockchain, right, the Starknet blockchain. So we've spoken about the provider, the signer, and also the account, and we all know that these things we use to write and also read from the blockchain. So if you want to read your smart contract, the smart contract you've been writing over the past couple of weeks, right? How do you now specify that, okay, it is this my smart contract that I wrote that I want to interact with, right? So this is where the contract comes in. The contract is basically the contract you want to interact with, right? So the contract takes in the ABI, right? I want to believe we all know what ABI is, right? And then the provider itself, right? So we now know what a provider is, and then the account, right? So it takes the provider, the account, and also the ABI. So from the screenshots we have here, this is how to instantiate a contract, right? So we have my test contract. Now new, then of course the contract you are instantiating the contract. Then the ABI, so you know the ABI contains the access points. We'll see that shortly, but contains like the entry point. Yeah, I think the right word is the entry point. So assuming you have a to-do contract that you wrote, right? So what are the entry points to your contract? Let's say add to do, get to do, delete to do, and all of that. So those are the entry points. So the ABI contains the entry point and also defines the structure of the data that is expected by the smart contract. So we don't go and be sending in a UN 64 when we're supposed to send in a UN 256, something like that, right? Then the next parameter is the address. So now the address of your contract, you wrote your contract, you deployed your contract on the blockchain, right? So the test address here is a variable holding the address of the contract, right? And then we have the provider, right? And we'll also look at how to connect the accounts much later, but yeah. So now a little recap. as a beginner in the front end space, right? The Starknet front end space, you need to get familiar with the Starknet.js library, right? The Starknet.js library, which helps us to interact with the blockchain. And then we just covered the key concepts that you need to know, right? When you're building a dApp, a front end application on Starknet blockchain, right? So we spoke about the provider for reading, we have the account, we have the signer, and we also have the contract. Now that you are aware of all of this, there are other things to still like check, but yeah, you can check that out much later, check the documentation, just type Starknet.js, and yeah, it's just going to pop up. Now, the next thing is StarknetKit. So as a front-end developer in this space, these are some of the things you need to be aware of, some of the libraries that people have developed, right, to make our development process a whole lot easier as a front-end developer in the Starknet space, right? So we have the Starknet.js, which a couple of people came together, they did it, and it's out there to help us, right? Then we have the Starknet Kit. Now, this Starknet Kit is an SDK, right, which enables developers to build and connect their dApps with Starknet, right? So this is primarily responsible for connection, right? So when you're looking for a library that would help you connect, right? You just want to, you know, the typical connect interface. You need to have like all the, what they call them, all the wallets, right? The injected wallets and maybe the web wallets and all of that. So you have a modal, now you have to design a modal, then you have to now fetch all the injected wallets. It's actually a lot of code, right? So if you're just using Starknet.js alone, you're going to write a whole lot of code to be able to have that seamless UX where users can just come and then they select the wallet they interested in, or it fetches like all the injected wallets they have on their browser, and then you just like how you connect to any typical dApp, right? So the Starknet Kit is helping with that, right? Starknet Kit is that SDK that will help you with all of this that I just spoke about. It's going to, it has like a very beautiful modal. It has like all the injected wallets, connection, auto connect, and all of those things you would think of when it comes to connecting a wallet, right? The Starknet.js library has that. So let's look at what that is. StarknetKit, sorry. So this is the StarknetKit library, the wallet SDK for developers on Starknet. So anything has to do with like the wallet connection, this is your go-to, right? This SDK does just that. And then as you can see, they'll give you access to this very beautiful, beautiful model. And you have, you can customize this to display the name of your dApp, right? And then these are I think the most popular wallets we have on Starknet, right? The Agent X, Bravos, Agent Mobile, and also email. So yeah, and then you just click on that and you have that ready. So if I click here, when you integrate this, this is what you will have. You click and then you have something like this, right? Very beautiful model. And then you connect to your wallet. So this is for wallets, right? And much later, you can take out time to go through their documentation, understand what they're doing, check out their GitHub if you want to integrate this into your dApp, right? Yeah, this is good. Any question, guys? No question. I hope I'm loud enough. Okay. All right. Okay, so back to back to this. That is it for StarknetKit. Now, the next we have is the almighty Starknet React, right? So we just covered two libraries or two SDKs, right? The Starknet.js, right, which is like the core, right? Just like how you have React.js, yeah, something like that. So, and then the StarknetKit. Now, this is Starknet React. So Starknet React is a collection of React hooks, right, on Starknet. And then it combines the following packages. Sorry, I really forgot to write that out. Starknet React. So let's take a look at this library. Now, this is Starknet React, and then this is basically a combination of a whole lot of hooks, right? The hooks here are quite a lot, and this is amazing, right? Starknet React is amazing. So when you say that you want to interact with the Starknet blockchain using the Starknet.js, right? It's just like you saying you like to use vanilla JavaScript to, build your front-end application. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But are there a lot of things you need to do? Yes, a whole lot of things you need to do with the vanilla JavaScript, right? So let's just say the Starknet.js is like the vanilla, right? But yeah, I'm just trying to put them in the same category, but this is way better than vanilla JavaScript, right? It's still vanilla JavaScript anyways, because it's not a hook, right? So, or it's not really React you get, and it's going to give you a whole lot of stress. You need to do a whole lot on your own when you're building your front-end app with Starknet.js. Now, this is Starknet.js, right? And this is how you get started on Starknet.js, but that's not why we're here. Now, why we're here is to look at interact with your contract. Now, to interact with your contract, you need a provider, the contract, and your account, right? These are like the three things you need, and which we covered, right, earlier on. So here we have this is your DApp, and then we have the account connected to contracts. That's the account. It could be my Bravos or my agent, right? And then when you write, right? So when you want to write to invoke, it has to go through an account, right? Because yes, the account will now invoke whatever it is you're trying to do. Then to the contract. But when you want to read, right, you don't need an account to read. And we spoke about that earlier, using your provider, right? The provider doesn't take an account, just give it the node URL and that's it. So this is to read from your contract. So just go from your DApp to the contract. We're going to take a look at that later. Now, just look at this. If you want to read, or rather write to the Starknet blockchain, this is a piece of code, right? First off, we need our provider, which is taking our node URL. We need the address. This is the address of the contract you want to write to, right? And then this is a way for you to get the API. There are two ways for you to get the API of a contract. I'm going to show you the other one much later. But this one here, you could use the get class at. Now, using the provider, you just pass in the address of your contract, right? And then it will retrieve the API for you using the get class at, right? Now, this is the contract we have. So we have the contract instantiated here, my test contract, and this here we read. So we say my contract will get balance, right? And this is going to lock the balance. Sorry, I think that was for reading. Yeah, so this is for writing. Please don't get lost. Just follow me. You don't have to, get all of this at once, but I'm just trying to explain the concept so you know why you should use this and not that. You get something like that. So here, we're already familiar with this. This is our provider. We use that to read. We all know that. Everybody here knows that. Now, let's say this is our account, right? We have our private key and then our account address. Can you see how, like, this is a bit, would I say mechanical, right? Because imagine you building a dApp for people and you have to go and be getting their private key. Who is even going to give you the private key? And then their wallet address. It doesn't really make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. But this is the private key of, let's say, my Bravos right now. This is the private key of my Bravos here. And then the address of this account, all right? I can just copy that and then I paste it here. Then we have the account. Now, this is how you create an account. So remember when we spoke about the accounts, we say the account extends the provider and also the signer, right? So we have a new account. This is the provider, and then the account address, right? And then the private key. Of course, you need a private key to sign a transaction. So it is the signer, right? So we have the provider, the account address, the private key, and then we have the address of the contract we want to write to. Then this whole code here is just to retrieve the ABI of the contract we want to write to. Now, we have an account, that's one, or rather, we have provider one, we have an account two, because remember, you need three things to read, or sorry, three things to write to a contract, right? So you need the provider, you need the account, and you need the contract itself. So here we have the provider, here we have the account, and this is the contract, right? So we say my test contract is equal to new contract, and then this, the test ABI, the address of the contract, and then the provider, right? Now, if you just say my test contract dot increase balance, let's say the contract we are interacting with, right, has an entry point called increase balance. This is going to fail, right? Because you do not have an account. You just created an account here and you've not connected the account. So here we say my test contract dot connect. Then we have accounts, right? Then you pass in the account. Now this line here is going to connect your contract, right, to the account. So this is now going to say, okay, fine. Anytime this person wants to invoke or write to the blockchain, my test contract should use this account, that's account 0, because that is the account we're connected to. So after this, you see, it's actually pretty simple. It's not that difficult. After this whole thing here, you can now start reading. So reading and also writing. So my test contract got get balance, right? Remember, you can use the account to read and also write. So yeah. So we're going to get balance. This is a read call. Now this is a write invoke, right? So my test contract dot populate. Then we have the entry point. That is the name of the entry point, right? In the smart contract. So the entry point is increase balance, and then the argument. So we want to increase the balance by 10. That is perfect. So that is the call. This is you here just populating the call, arranging the call. Then you now say my test contract will increase balance. Now you're calling this guy and then you pass the call data. Don't get lost. Just trying to make a point here. Look at that much later. Now, this is basically how to, in like the simplest way ever, how to read and also write to the Starknet blockchain on using Starknet.js rather, right? So this is how to read and write to the Starknet blockchain using Starknet.js. And you could already tell that if you are building an actual application, like a real front-end app, if you're familiar with front-end, you already know that this isn't going to give you what you've been seeing on other dApps, right? The seamlessness and all of that. This is a bit mechanical. You have to get the address, you have to get the private key and all of those things, right? So that's just a whole lot. So, but this is basically how to read and also write. Now, let's go back to Starknet React. But before I do that, let me be sure that, okay, you can still hear me, I believe. Now back to Starknet React. This is Starknet React, and I mentioned earlier that Starknet React is a combination of hooks, right? And you know what a hook does? If you're a front-end dev, you know that hooks are just here to make your life easier, right? They just handle, they're more of like functions, but in a higher order, right? Higher than a normal function, right? So they do certain things. Now they hook you onto something. You get something like that. So this is Starknet React, right? And this Starknet React is built on Starknet.js. So it's just like you taking something and making it better. So you know how we have JavaScript. In those days, we're using like the DOM to build applications, right? And it was just a whole lot of stress. But when React came, everything started becoming better and nice. So that is exactly what is happening here. So Starknet.js, building with Starknet.js is a whole lot of stress, right? But it's amazing actually. Then we have like the Starknet React, which is abstracting like a whole lot of things and helping you do most of the things that, you know, almost every dApp does, instead of like repeating code every now and then. And it makes like development faster and easier. So three things in Starknet React. The first is the can-stack query. So can-stack query, it's basically a state management library, right? We use can-stack to, if you're a front-end dev, you just know that, okay, use can-stack to manage your state on the front end. So for data fetching and all of that, mutations and everything, can-stack handles that. Then we have the Starknet.js itself for interacting with Starknet. So if you're interacting with Starknet on a dApp, it has to go through the Starknet.js, right? Yeah, has to go through the Starknet.js. Then we have the ABI, which is for type safe contract calls, right? This is just to ensure that the what do you call them? Those Cairo types are converted to something readable, TypeScript, something that TypeScript understands, because TypeScript doesn't really understand them. You in 256, you in 64 fields and span and all those things, right? So this is responsible for ensuring that those types are, you know, understood by the front end. Now, this is not what we're interested in. So we just took a look at how to read and write to the blockchain, right? Which is the Starknet blockchain using the Starknet.js. Let's do similar with this one here. Now, you could already see the amazing hooks that we have here. We have the use balance. You can already tell from the name that this hook is responsible for retrieving the balance of an account, right? Or the balance of a wallet or something like that. Then we also have the use contracts and all of those things. Well, yeah, let's forget about that one. This is like smart contracts level. Let's come down to the wallet actions. Now, we have the use send transaction. So, okay. So basically, this is what we have here. Now, this is how to like send a transaction, right? So I think I'm trying to check for another thing. Yeah, don't worry about that. So this is basically how to send a transaction using the Starknet React. So the things you need, remember we said that when you want to write to the Starknet blockchain, you need three things, right? You need the provider, you need the accounts, and you also need the contract. So let's see how all of those things are handled here, and if this is less mechanical than what we saw, right? So we have the ABI, but from what we saw on Starknet.js, they were getting the ABI using the class art. You could do that as well, but yeah, it's not really that hard to get an ABI. I'll show you that in a minute. So now let's say this is the ABI of this contract, and These are the entry points. So, you know, I was talking about entry points earlier. Now, this is an entry point. Transfer is an entry point, and type, it's a function, right? And the state mutability, external, right? So you're coming from like your solidity background, all those, what do you call them again? Visibility, something, something, right? So we have the external, internal, all of that. So state mutability, this is external. We have the input. Now, the API is actually very important because it helps like define the structure of the kind of data to send to the blockchain. So we have the input here, and then what are we expecting? What is this function which was written by a smart contract developer expecting from us? It's just like how when you're building in Web 2, we have the API, right? And then you have to like write the API docs explaining to your front-end dev that, okay, this function is expecting this, and yeah, that's similar to what we're doing here. Now, the input. So what are we expecting? We're expecting an input called recipient. And what is the type of recipient? The type of recipient is a contract address, right? So you know that recipient cannot be a string or a felt. It has to be a type of contract address. Then the second thing we are expecting is the amount, right? Now, what is the type of this amount? The type of the amount is U256. Amazing. The API has helped us to like break all this down. Then we have the address. So remember how we were connecting accounts, right? On Starknet.js, that we had to get the private key and the address of the account. Now, Starknet React has what we call the useAccount hooks, right? Let's see that here. This is the useAccount. Sorry, we'll go back to that real quick, but let's just understand this. Now, the useAccount hook, right, is responsible for returning the connected account. So you could already tell how easy this is for me, because we're importing the useAccount and it's returning the address. It returns the account itself and also the status and so many other amazing things, right, that we could get from the useAccount hook. So you see here we have the account, which is a type of the account interface. We have the address of the account that you're connected to. We have the connector. We have the chain ID, right? So if you like to tell what chain, what network this is connected to, something like that. But then we have the status. You could use this. You could already, you know, imagine what you can use this to do on your front end. Or if connected, what do we do? If not connected, we show this, we show that. We have the is connecting. This is a loading state, right? Is reconnecting, is connected, is disconnected. But when you come back to what we have here, oh no, you have to do all of these things yourself. You have to check the status, you have to do, it's a whole lot, right? It's a whole lot. Now, yeah, so connecting an account. So the Starknet React has a hook called the useConnect, right? And you can use the useConnect to connect to, you can use the useConnect to connect to an account, right? So it gives you the connect function and other things, right? So if you just go down, you'd see like all the things you could get from the useConnect hook. And then we also have the useDisconnect, and it comes with you know, it returns all the connectors for you, and then you could have a modal where you display all the connectors, select the wallet you want to connect to, and then you connect to that account. Then useAccount returns the connected accounts to you, right? So let's go back. Use accounts. Which one is this? Use accounts. Okay, so now we know what our useAccount does, right? useAccount returns the account, the address, and all those things that is connected, the accounts that is connected, right? Then we also have the use network, which returns like the chain, right? Which network we're on. So if you're on Cipolia or you're in mainnet, right? So the use network is going to return the network you're on. Then we have the use contract. So this is a hook that you can reuse, right, for instantiating your contract, which is really amazing compared to what we saw here, where we want to create our our contract. So this use contract basically takes in the API of the contract you would like to work with, and then the address of also the address of the contract, right? So, and then it returns the contract, it returns this, it returns what we have here, right? So instead of you doing this, you could simply just work with the use contract hook that takes the API, the address, and then it returns the contract itself. Now, when you want to send a transaction, right? You want to make a call, you want to write to the blockchain. We have another hook. That's why we said Starknet React is basically a combination of numerous hooks, right? Numerous hooks that do a lot of amazing things. So we have the use send transaction. Now the send here is responsible for, of course, sending is a function that invokes the entry point. So invokes the contract, right? And then it gives you a whole lot of things. Actually, we have the send. This is the function to like send a request, of course. We have the send async. So you know that asynchronous, you could use await here in case you want to wait for the transaction to finish before you do something else in your code. You can work with the send async, or else you just use your send, but they do the same thing, just that one is asynchronous and the other isn't. Then also returns the data, right? Error, reset if you want to reset, variable status, which is amazing. But if you're working with Starknet.js, you have to, you know, account for all of these things yourself, right? As the developer. So when we come back here, we have the use send transaction. It takes in the calls, right? So of course, when you want to send, you're making calls. So it takes an array of calls, but if it's just one call you have, it's fine. You could send like just one call. Then this is just us making sure, ensuring that there is the contract. Now the contract has been defined, instantiated, right? And there's also an address, right? Because we don't want a scenario where you don't have a contract, you don't have an address, and you're trying to invoke or make a call. Now, then we have the contract that populates. This is just responsible for arranging the call data, right? So contract that populates, then the name of the entry point, which is transfer, and then this is expecting two arguments, right? From our ABI, we could already tell that we're expecting the recipient, right? The first argument is the recipient, and the second is the amount. So we have the recipient here, and then the amount, they just send in the amount as a big integer, right? So, and then this is it, right? If you want to now send a transaction, this is it. This is how you go about it using Starknet React with the help of numerous hooks, right? That do numerous things. And then we also have the use read contract. Yes, so you need you use the read contract, and then the address of the contract, of course, and then arguments in case the read function is expecting an argument. You pass that here, else just put an empty array, and you're good to go. Then this use read contract returns the data. Of course, when you're reading from the blockchain, you are expecting the data, right? You've done some transactions, you've done some transactions, and now you want to query the transactions. You want to see what you've been able to do so far. So now the use read contract is responsible for that. And then you also have the error, right? You could catch the error from this error object. Now, when you're less busy, you can take out your time and just go through this to see all the things that you have access to with the use read contract, right? So we have other amazing hooks, right? That you could check out when you are or maybe after the class or something. But then again, okay, so that's it for Starknet React. Now you know that Starknet React is basically a library, right? And it's also a collection of different hooks, right, that help you with development. They make your development a lot easier and yeah, faster when you're building your front-end apps, right? Now, we've covered a lot actually, so let's proceed. Now, Starknet Scaffold. So the thing is, I'm always looking for. I'm not looking actually. I wasn't told to. I was told to do this, but I'm just trying to find like easier ways to build dApps on Starknet, right? So as you can tell, we started from Starknet.js, we went to StarknetKit, and then we now went to Starknet React, which is a lot easier than Starknet.js, and then now we're here on Starknet Scaffold. Now, Starknet Scaffold is basically um, what's the word? An application, right? It's an app that is also here to help you move faster, yeah, build better applications on dApp. So sorry, on Starknet. So instead of you focusing on this little things that will take a while, right, to build, you can just scaffold it, right? So I believe when you hear the word scaffold, you already know that, okay, oh, this is just going to give you like a boilerplate, like yeah, a boilerplate, right? If you're familiar with like HTML boilerplates, yeah, you can relate, I guess. So it gives you like a starting I say stepping stone or something like that, right? So you move from prototyping to production grade apps seamlessly, right? So like that's the work of Starknet Scaffold, right? So it's basically a toolkit. Let's take a look at Starknet Scaffold. Let's take a look at Starknet Scaffold. Starknet Scaffold. Okay, so this is Starknet Scaffold, right? Everything you need to build dApps in Starknet, yeah. And then let's go through Starknet Scaffold and see what Starknet Scaffold is all about, what we can do with Starknet Scaffold, right? So if you've been following, then I'm very sure you'll find this one interesting. Now, what are some of the things we could do with Starknet Scaffold, right? Remember, we said that this is going to help us scaffold, right? Prototype level applications, right? Help us move from prototype level to production grade, right? Just set us up there real quick so we could deliver products faster and better. Now, some of the things you can do with the Starknet Scaffold. Number one is the Bonner wallet, right? So what is a Bonner wallet, right? A Bonner wallet is basically a wallet you could use for development, like a test wallet, right? Like a sandbox for wallets. And then when we click on that, it takes us to this interface, right? And then please note that Bonner wallets are not supported on mainnet. Yes, actually, they're not supported on mainnet. They're just on testnet, right? So if you're looking for a wallet to test out what you're building, and yeah, the Bonner wallet is good for that. Now we have this. I think I have to connect my accounts before I can use the Bonner wallet. Let's see, Bravos. Continue anyway. All right, so I've connected my account, and then so this is it. If you ever need a test wallet, you don't want to use your wallets, any of the Bravos or agents. If you ever need a test wallet, this is your go-to, the Bonner wallet. So this is going to deploy a wallet on the blockchain, right? It's going to deploy a Bonner wallet on the blockchain now. I'll just wait for that to. Yay, we have our burner wallet. So now you have a burner wallet, and what can you do with this burner wallet? You already know what you can do with your wallet. So let's still need to go into that. Now, this is the address of the burner wallet. You can send it and stack, right, to this burner wallet. And you can, once you do that, this execute button will be activated. And then you can now use that burner wallet to execute any transaction on the blockchain, right? So you can now use this burner wallet to execute any transaction on the Starknet blockchain, right? So you don't have to like spin up an app somewhere for you to test if your smart contract is going to work, or you just want to execute a transaction from the front end, just know how it feels, right? So the burner wallet is a go-to. So that's it about the burner wallet. And then back to what is the next thing we have here? The next thing we have is the scaffold faucets. Yeah, the scaffold faucet. So now, if you are ever looking for a test net tokens, right, for your wallets, because you know you need test tokens to build, right? As you're building, you will need test tokens. So Starknet Scaffold gives you they take you to where you can get the test tokens, right? So let's see. Let me try to request for a test token. Copy this address. You just paste your address here, and I think you can just request once in a day, right? So if you request now, you have to wait till the next 24 hours before you can request for test tokens. So here you can select the tokens you're interested in. So if what do I need? I think I have enough it. So I'm going to request for stack, right? Then I request for stack test tokens, and that's it. So I'm just gonna wait to see if I get this. It might take a while, but yeah, that's it. It should, yeah. Is it here? I wasn't having this much, was I? Yeah, I think it's here. So now we have 176 stack tokens. Yay, that's good. So if you're looking for test tokens, right? Sepolia 8 Sepolia stack, you can come here to the Starknet Faucet, or if you can't remember the URL, just come to Starknet Scaffold and you go to the Scaffold Faucet, right? So yeah, that's good. Now we know that the Starknet Scaffold provides us with a burner wallet, a Scaffold Faucet, and then the next thing is the Scaffold Wikipedia, a collection of Starknet/Cairo learning resources in the ecosystem. I think I like this one. Now, if you're looking for a place to find learning materials, right? So you can come here. There's actually a number of them here. So many things. Yes, so you can look at that much later. Then we have the Connect wallets. Yeah, we have I think we also have the address book, if I'm not mistaken. So where is the address book? Because I think that's quite important. You can't find the address book. Try online. Am I on the wrong? Oh yeah, it was on the old UI. Yeah, so this is the address book. So this address book is actually very important, right? So if you're looking for the contract addresses of the popular contracts on Starknet, right? So like UDC, right? The stack, the V stack, WBTC, UDC, USDC, and USDT and ETH, right? So you just come here. Don't ever see that. So you're asking somebody for, please, do you know the USDC Starknet address on, yeah, Starknet address, right? You don't have to ask somebody. Just come here and then you see all of them, right? Because in the course of development, you will need this, right? So this is good. Yeah, so I think these are some of the things you can, or Starknet Scaffold is providing you with, right? The stack converter, check that one out later. Now, this is not the important thing here because these ones are just like, they're not development things, right? But we're more focused on development. So when you want to build an application ASAP, right? Because we know that for you to have a DApp ready, right? Not like ready, but for you to like spin up a Starknet DApp. Of course, people should be able to connect wallets, right? And then there are all other components that are used across, right? That are used in almost every DApp you go to. You know that you must connect your wallet. So that one is very important. So how about you have something that will, help you with that? You don't have to be connecting wallets or integrating the code or writing the code to connect to wallets all the time. Starknet Scaffold is here to help you with that, right? Now, to get started with Starknet Scaffold, you can clone it from here, right? Or you could use this, right? So I'm just gonna clone this. I'm just gonna clone this. Sorry, guys. Okay. So git clone. I'm gonna clone this. Git clone Starknet Scaffold. So let's take a look at what Starknet Scaffold looks like. So open our VS Code. Let's have a new window. And then Starknet Scaffold. All right, guys. So this is what Starknet Scaffold looks like when you clone the application, right? And then now the Starknet Scaffold is great, but I think I have a sad news. But let's finish. When we're done, I'll tell you guys sad news about Starknet Scaffold. So when you clone this application, you have access to the Bona, right? The Bona wallet. I think this is where the smart contracts for the Bona wallet we created earlier is, right? We have the contract, and so they don't just provide you with the front end components that you need to spring up an app, right? They also have the smart contract side of it, right? So I think for people that write smart contracts, there are things that almost every smart contract needs, right? So you can just come here and then use that instead of you like writing it all over again and all. Then we have the DevNet, we have the scripts, yeah? So you can check that out later, but for the sake of this class, we will be focusing on the front end, right? So we're focusing on the front end. Now, so let's CD into the front end. Okay, and install the packages, right? So npm install, I think there are conflicts, so we should just conflict and the dependencies. So it's just better we do legacy PDEPs. So avoid that. Okay, so while we wait for this to finish, now let's look at some of the things we have access to here. We have the the address book. That's not really what we need to spring up an application. Now the components, we have internal and we have the library, right? So you have access to the connect wallet interface, right? Now you don't have to write all this code to connect a wallet. Starknet Scaffold has done that already. Damn it. Starknet Scaffold has done that already for you, right? And all you just need to do is to connect and then you start building. Sorry, guys, I think I have to connect this. Okay. Yeah. Then we also have the add token, the address bar, right? So the address bar is just this little interface for the app, and you usually on dApps, when you connect to a wallet, it shows you like the address, your address, and splice it up with like dot dot dots in between right here. So if the wallet is connected, you see that. If it's not connected, then the account is you see something like disconnect, right? So yeah, that is the address bar. We also have the network switcher. So on your dApp, if you want people to be able to switch between mainnet and Sepolia, so you could also do that with the network switcher. We have the transactions, right? Oh yeah, you could use this interface to display transactions, but I think this is hard coded or something, right? Then we also have the Starknet provider. Now, this is like responsible for setting up Starknet itself. I know, right? Setting up the Starknet config. Yeah, the Starknet config. Now, the downside to this, I think I mentioned I was going to say something. I'll find the call again. Oh, okay. So the downside is that I spoke to Darlington this morning because I wanted like to integrate a to-do, like add a to-do into the Starknet Scaffold, and I was having like a lot of conflict. So I noticed that they've not updated their what's the name of that thing? They've not updated their Starknet React to match with the latest version of Starknet React, right? So I spoke to Darlington, and he said, unfortunately, they are deprecating, or Starknet Scaffold has been deprecated. And I just found that out this morning. So if you want to use Starknet Scaffold right now, I think the only thing you can use Starknet Scaffold for is to view all those things, maybe create a Bono wallet, what again, view the address books, the stack converter, the faucet, and all those other information, but you can't necessarily build an application because you'll be building on like old stuff, right? When people have gone far already. So Starknet Scaffold is deprecated. But then again, we have another scaffolding application. So this Starknet Scaffold was actually developed by our own, right? Like a Nigerian. So, but then we have the stack. I don't know, people that are familiar with Olidos here must have come across Stack Scaffold, right? So this is another application that you could use to scaffold the application. It's also a toolkit, just like the Starknet Scaffold, right? And it has a whole lot of things. So I think the Starknet Scaffold team focus on building something else, right? So they're not really interested in maintaining Starknet Scaffold, but Stack Scaffold would, yeah, I think Stack Scaffold would help. Let's see, demo. And I think they actually have a number of features, like a good number of features that you could play around with. Okay, these are some testimonies. That's nice. So yeah, basically you could check them out if you're interested in building an application with the scaffold, with the toolkit, right? So a good alternative to Starknet Scaffold, which is now deprecated, is the Stack Scaffold, right? All right, so let's proceed, guys. That is it for Starknet Scaffold and also Stack Scaffold height. Okay. That's crazy. And why is it so hard to find this call? All right, I can't find the call again, but then again, I trust you guys can hear me. How do I get back to this call? Okay, so okay, all right, guys. Any question so far? I know we've covered a whole lot, and it looks like it's a lot for one day, right? Especially for those who are not familiar with front end. I know they might be a lot, but yeah. Are there any questions? I would like to take questions, guys. Or I should ask questions. Don't worry. I'll not ask you guys now. I'll prepare the question. I want it to be. Okay, guys, so let's proceed. I think we still have some time. Now, we actually covered a little recap of what we've done so far. Getting started with Starknet, building front-end apps on Starknet. We spoke about the most popular library, which is the Starknet.js, right? And then we also spoke about, what did we speak about again? The key concepts, right? The key concepts everybody should know when you're building a dApp on Starknet. And we also covered the Starknet kit, right? We mentioned that Starknet kit is used for wallet connection. It's just an SDK that you can use to connect to a wallet, right? And then we moved to the Starknet React, looked at how to, compare that with Starknet.js, how to interact with the Starknet blockchain using both, what do you call them? Both libraries, right? And yeah, so we also looked at Starknet Scaffold, which is now deprecated, but we could also still use that to get access to other stuff, right? So yeah, now let's proceed actually. Let's proceed. Let's look at some codes. I think I have something written. So we can just take a look at that. This is Starknet Scaffold, right? Close this. Okay. So I wrote something yesterday. So after this class, I'm just going to push that. And then you guys can clone or pull and go through it, right? So just trying to explain what we have. npm run dev. Is that not it? Is that not how to kickstart this application? npm run dev. Yeah. Okay, this is Scaffold stack, localhost 3000. What is our application running on? It's running on localhost 3000, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so we have this simple to-do list app here that I wrote yesterday. So let's try to go through this and understand what's happening, right? Now, this is a front-end project, right? Next.js project. And if you're familiar with Next.js, you know that the Next.js has the app directory, right? And inside the app directory, this is like a very minimal application, so doesn't really have much stuff. Now, inside the app directory, we have the components, and inside the components, we have just the nav bar. The nav bar, which is this guy here. So in the nav bar, we have the Blockfuse Labs, and we also have the Connect Wallet, right? Now, the Connect Wallet button, and when we click on this, we actually want to connect. Let's take a look at our contract address, right? So when you head over to any of the explorers of your choice, I think I'm interested in this one here. So the contract we're working with is on Sepolia, so we have to switch to Sepolia. Now, this is StackScan. I believe we all know what StackScan does. If we don't, this is an explorer, right? You can come here and explore your contracts, basically. So yeah, you can come and explore your contract. Now, we have this contract deployed, and when you come here, we have the the overview of the contract, right? You could see the overview of the contract. We have 0 in this contract, and you could also see when this contract was deployed, right? The class hash and the transaction hash. But that's not what we're interested in. So when you paste your contract on an Explorer, right, it gives you access to all these things. Now we have the read and write tab, and this has 2 tabs. We have the read and also the write. So the read are your read calls, right? Your read functions, whether they're not calls, your read functions. And this contract has just one read, which is the get to-do list. So if I query this now, you could see that these are the to-do lists we have, right? The to-do list I've added, I've uploaded, I've sent to this contract. And then when you come here, you would see the write functions. We have add to do, complete to do, and also delete to do. So we have just 3 functions, right, to write to this contract using Starknet, of course. Now, we also have this tab, which is like very important. So remember I mentioned earlier that I'm going to walk you guys through how to get the ABI of any smart contract. So if you're looking to get the ABI of a smart contract, all you need to do is get the address of the smart contract. You paste that on your Explorer, and you go to the class code /history tab, and then you'd see the copy ABI code here. So if I open this, this is the ABI of my contract, right? So with Starknet.js, I think there was a place where we saw how we can get the ABI just from the contract address, right? So it's either you do it that way, or you get that contract address, you paste it, and then you copy this as a constant, right? Now, this is our ABI, and it contains the entry points to this contract, right? So we have the to-do list, and we know what the to-do list is going to return, right? The member here, we have the ID, to-do description, status. Then we also have the this one is the struct. Yeah, this is the struct. So the struct is like the type, right? So this is the struct. It's expecting an ID, a to-do description, and a status. Then this is the interface, right? And then inside the interface, this is add to do. We have add to do, and it's expecting a failed 252. And we have the get to do, which is expecting, what is it expecting? It's not expecting anything. There are no arguments, but rather it's returning. The output is an array of to-do list, right? Which is a struct that was defined, type to do, which is a struct that was defined above, I think. Then we have the complete to do. Now this complete to do takes in the to do ID and marks that to do as completed. Then we have the delete to do, right? Takes the to do ID as well and deletes the to do. So I can just copy this ABI, right? And then go back to my code. Let's go back to the code. Sorry guys, just want to be sure that we are still on the call. Okay. So ABI, yeah. Now I have my ABI stored here already, right? So I copied that, and we have this ABI here. Then the next important thing we need to look at is how to configure Starknet React in any React application, the Next.js or any, right? Now, if you go to the layout, you would see that we have some setup done already, right? And this is basically how you can connect or configure Starknet React in your React application. Now, the first thing you need to get is after installing, of course, your Starknet React, right? When you head over to the documentation for Starknet React, you'd see how to install Starknet React. And then we have this here. we have the use injected connectors. So remember that Starknet React is a combination of hooks, right? So there is a hook called the use injected connectors that returns all the connectors, right? It returns all the connectors. Now, what are connectors? We're going to take a look at that. Look at that shortly. Sorry. Now, the use injected connectors takes in some arguments, right? The first one is the recommended. Now, the recommended, right, is just your recommended connectors. So we have the agents. These are like the popular connectors, right? And then we have the agents, bravos, and then include recommended only if no connectors, right? Then this is just a setup. When you check like the Starknet React docs, you would see what that is doing. Then we have the order. The order is alphabetical. So when you want to connect to the wallet, you see agents, then bravos, right? Because A is ahead, and then B, of course, that's alphabetical. You guys know what that is. Now, what is injected? Injected connectors are basically connectors that are installed on your browser, right? So if we go back to our browser, we would see that we have some injected connectors. Sorry, guys. I think I'm trying to find the browser with the injected connectors. So when you come here, I have agents. I have Bravos, that's the first, then agents, right? Then I think this is Bitjet. Then I also have OKX. So these are injected connectors, right? Now, these injected connectors, they are connectors or wallets that are installed on your browser as extensions. So if you don't be surprised when you're trying to do yours and you're just seeing Bravos alone. That's because you don't have agents, right? Or maybe you're seeing agents alone because you don't have Bravos installed as an extension on your browser, right? So let's proceed, guys. Now, this recommended. Now, if there are no connectors, if I don't have any connector at all, or if I'm trying to work on a browser that doesn't have connectors, this is going to pop up. The agents and Bravos is recommending that I install these two wallets. Do you get? So if I take out Bravos now, it will just recommend that I install what do I install? That I install just agents, right? So let's do something real quick. I don't know, I think I have that here. Let's check here instead. Which one is our application again? Okay, this one, localhost 3000. We go to Chrome. I don't think we have any browser here, so let's see what we get. So if we paste this here, and then connect wallet, right? So you see, it's recommending that. Do I have agents here? Oh, I have Bravos actually. I have Bravos. Oh, do I have Bravos here? No, I didn't. Anyways, so it's recommending agents because we have Bravos. So if there was both browsers, then this wouldn't show up, you get. And yeah. Wait, let's see what we have here. All right. But then if we go back to this guy here, this is where I have like all the wallets installed. So you could see we have Agent X, Bitjet, Bravos, OKX wallet, all the wallets I have installed on my browser as extensions, right? So these are the wallets showing here. Okay, that's it for that. Now the next thing is the RPC, right? So I think RPC is what, remote procedure call or something, but I can't really remember. I know it's remote procedure or something, right? So this RPC takes in the node URL. Now the node URL is it's more like the API, right? And also what kind of API is it? The API in production or the API in development? You get something like that. So the node URL here, this is the node URL to Sepolia. right? We have other ones. I think there's free Nethermines, something, and then there's also one from Alchemy. Yeah, but this one is from the Blast API. So you can use this to interact with the Starknet Sepolia network. Yes, so you can use this to interact to the Starknet Sepolia network. And then remember the provider we mentioned earlier, right? It looks a bit different, but don't worry, this is just set up. It's still the same thing. I could easily just copy this and create a new RPC provider and just put it there. But yeah, we can just. So this is our RPC and JSON RPC provider, and this is our provider. Now, when you're configuring your Starknet React, things you need the Starknet config, right? So this is our Starknet config. We imported that from Starknet React, right? So you need to wrap your entire application, right, with the Starknet config. So we have Starknet config, and Starknet config is expecting some props. So the first prop Starknet config is expecting from us are the chains, right? So Sepolia and Mainnet, these are the chains we'll be working with. Then the next is the connectors. So remember that the use injected connectors hook returns the connectors, right? So after doing this whole setup here, it returns the connectors to you. So we have the connectors here. You just pass in the connectors as connectors. Then we have the provider. You need the provider, else you won't be able to interact with the blockchain, or there is no way for you to tell it what network you want to work with, right? But I think the default, I don't know, default is Sepolia or is the mainnet. They have this default one. Yeah. Then we also have the Explorer. So what Explorer would you like to use for this project? And now I think I spoke about Explorers earlier. We have two Explorers. We have the Voyager.online. No, we don't have two. We have a number actually. We have about four, if I'm not mistaken. We have Voyager, ViewBlocks, StackScan, and one other one. Yeah, I'm sure of that. I can't remember the name. So this is the second Explorer, right? And I think we used the first to, explore our contracts to see the ABI and all of that. So that's StackScan. So you can decide to work with StackScan or Voyager. And then we also have the auto-connect. So this is to enable auto-connect. So after you connect for the first time, there should not be a need for the user to come back to your dApp. For every single time they come back or they refresh the page, then you're asking them to connect. It doesn't make sense. That's not a great UX, right? So the auto-connect is responsible for ensuring that whenever the users return to the platform, the account stays connected, right? Now, it's actually pretty simple. It's not hard to configure Starknet React in your application. You just need your connectors, right? Then the provider, and then you pass all of this down, right? This is something you could easily just copy from the Starknet React config page, right, on their docs app, right? Yeah, docs web application. Now, this is it, and this is very important. This is configuring your Starknet React in your application, your Next or React application. Okay. So now that we have this done, let's look at how to connect to a wallet, right? This is just the config, but that is not what is responsible for this. When you click on this and you see this interface, that's not what is responsible for that. So we would have used Starknet React for this. We actually have an option. Remember StarknetKit rather. StarknetKit gives us this beautiful model, but this particular application we're working with is using the connect from Starknet React, not StarknetKit, right? So you can decide to go with this, or you use the connect from Starknet React. Now, it's just that when you're using the connect from Starknet React, you do not have access to this beautiful model, right? And you will have to do some things your way. So for customization and other things, you can go with Starknet React. If you're big on customizing how a lot of things happen, right? Go with Starknet React. Although you can still do some level of customization with StarknetKit, but yeah, still. Okay, so let's go to the nav bar. We have this button here that says Connect Wallets, right? So when you click on Connect Wallets, we are opening a dialog, right? So that interface that appeared, the modal is a dialog. Sorry guys, I have to ensure. Okay, you guys can still hear me. And so what was I gonna say? Okay, so when we click on the Connect Wallet, we're triggering the dialog, right? So we have this simple dialog here, and this dialog is displaying all the connectors we have. Now, this hook, right? This useConnect hook, if you are connecting to a wallet or you're doing anything connect, this hook is responsible for that, right? So useConnect is going to return all the connectors. Remember the connectors we configured in layout.csx, what we have right here. The useConnect is going to return all of that, right? All of those connectors. So we have the connectors here and we have the connect async. So I think I spoke about send and send async, right? So connect, we have connect and also connect and also connect async. So one is asynchronous and the other isn't. So just from the name, you could already tell which one is asynchronous and also which is not, right? So we want to use connect async, not connect, but it depends on what you're looking to achieve. Both will work. Both will do like the primary task, right, which is to connect, right? So it's the after effects that now determines like which of the connects you would like to use. So if you would like to use the connect async or connect, right? Now, if we log the connectors we have here, let's say, oh, sorry, caps. So when we come here and we say console log connectors, and we say connectors here, right? So we head over to our console and try to see what we have here. So this is my console, and you would see that we have an array of 4 items, and all of these items are injected connectors, right? Remember our injected connectors in layout.tsx. So now we've just covered 2 files, so they're still on the second file. The first one is the layout.tsx. That's like the first step, right? That's where the config happens. Then this one now is our connects. Now we have this array here, which is returning all the injected connectors we have, all thanks to Starknet React. If you want to do this with Starknet.js, it's a whole lot of code you write, right? So we have injected connector, and inside the injected connector, we have the wallet itself, right? So you could see the first here is agent X. I have agent X here. Is connected false. Is pre-authorized name off on the provider request. So when we connect, that's when we will know the provider. Right now, the provider is empty, and the wallet account, there's no account connected, so account is undefined. We also have the chain ID. We're not connected yet, so it can't really tell us the chain ID. This is just like the type, right? Then we have the version, the selected address. We do not have selected address. Why? Because we've not connected to any. It makes sense. Alphabetical. Alphabetical. Why is Bravos? Okay, R. Okay. So we have OKX, and then we have, which one is this? Which is the last one? We have Bitskeep. Oh yeah, the first here. I think we didn't open this one. Anyways, Bravos is just somewhere around here because we could see it here. So it's in the array. regardless. So that is what Starknet React returns. It returns the connectors, all the connectors, the injected connectors. Remember, the injected connectors are connectors that you have or wallets that you have installed as extensions on your browser, right? So that is it. And then now this connector is an array, right? We just looked at it now and it's an array. And then we have to like display or look through the connectors and then display them so that the user can easily select the connector they're interested in. So this here is responsible for that. This is responsible for displaying the connector. So we have connectors.map. This is return all the connector. Now the connector gives us access to the ID of the connector, right, which is unique, and also gives us access to the connector, each connector itself, and also the connector.name, right? So that's why when I click here, you could see we have Agent X, Budget Wallet, Bravos, OKX Wallet. That's the name of the connector, and we're getting that from the useConnect hook. So we have this on click. We're saying anytime a user clicks on any of these buttons, we want to connect to the connector they clicked on. So we now said await, this is an async call, await connect async, right? Then connect async, which is also coming from the useConnect, takes in the connector, right? Takes in the connector. Now, this is the connector. We pass in connector as connector. And then when that is done, we just want to close this dialog, right? And it's that simple. So we get connectors and connect async from useConnect. We have then we display all the connectors, and then we pass the connector to the connect async to connect. So once you pass the connector to connect async, Starknet React handles the magic behind the scene, right? So the whole connection and everything handles is being done by Starknet React, and all you just need to do is to wait for your account, right? Your Starknet account that is connected to, or your wallet that is you're connected to, or your DApp is connected to. Now, this is useConnect. Remember, anything connection, you want to connect, useConnect, right? Then we have accounts, the useAccount hook. Now, this useAccount hook returns the accounts that you're connected to. So if I log, let's say console log accounts, and also is connected. So now when we go back to the browser and we refresh this page, those two fields should be null. All of them should be null, right? They are all zero. Now false or undefined are all null. So account is undefined. That makes sense because we do not have an account. It's not connected to any accounts. Then we have false because is an account connected? No. Now let's connect. Connect to, what do we want to connect to? Let's connect to Bravos because I think I've connected to that. And immediately you do that, let me disconnect. It's because I've connected. It's not supposed to just connect like that. So let's start again. All right, so go to Bravos. How about we try something that I've not logged into? Exactly, this one I'm looking for. So after like some time, I've opened my Bravos. So that was right, that was so quick. But once you've not done any of that and you want to connect, the first thing you see is the interface to log into the account you want to connect to, right? Or the wallet you like to connect to. So let's say I want to connect to this. I just hope I can still remember my password. Oh, that's great. So once you connect, you see account becomes not undefined, right? We have value, and you could see the account. Now we have a Starknet account that we could use to, write to the blockchain. And if you open the account object, you see the address, right? You would see the channel, the deploy self, all these things are not really important, except for the signer. Now, this signer that we spoke about earlier is quite important. Without the signer, we cannot write, we cannot sign messages, right? So this is the signer, and we mentioned that the account is an extension of the provider API and also the signer. I'm sure some of you remember, right? So we have the signer here, and then you would also see that we have this channel here, which is a
which has the node URL, right? And then this wallet provider, yeah, and then this wallet provider, this is just, this is not really important, right? So we have the signer and we also have the channel, and you could see that the node URL we're working with, the node URL we configured in our layouts.csx, right, in the config file is what we have here, right? So the account object is an extension of the signer and also the provider. So if you go deep into the code, you would see that the account interface, which is a type of the account object itself, it is extending the type of the provider, right, API, and also the signer API. Yeah, so that's it. And then it's connected through. Yes, because we're connected. And yeah, it's that simple, right? With Starknet React. So useAccount gives us access to accounts, is connected, and other things that you can explore later, right? So I'm just going to take this out. And that is it for connecting to a wallet, right? On a Starknet using Starknet React. You get the connectors, look through the connectors, you call the connect async or the connect, pass in the connector to either of these functions. You connect, and then the use account is now responsible for, you know, returning the connected accounts and is connected. So anywhere in the app, I can just go any file, I can just go into the file and then call the use account hook. And this is going to return the connected accounts and the is connected, right, Boolean. Okay, so that is it for connecting to an account, guys. Now let's look at what else do we have to look at? We have this here. We have this Starknet to-do list, right? And let's see what I can do when I say welcome. Make sure, let's say, ensure you join. Get started with block let's Frontend class, right? And then we add, we have an error. What's the error? Ensure, oh shit. So we are expecting a failed 252, which should not be greater than 31 characters. So our text is too long, right? So let's say something like join Starknet community. I hope this isn't long. I haven't tried long text before. Just, yeah. Okay, so let's see. Now I'm writing to the blockchain and you could already tell what is happening, right? An account is connected. Remember, to write, you need the provider, you need the account, and you need the contract, right? So this is taking a while. It should resolve in no time. Now the connected accounts at the moment, oh, this is mainnet, so we should probably just reject this. Disconnect this and connect to maybe, let's say, Bravos, because Bravos is already on Sequoia. We could switch that to Sequoia, but yeah, let's just disconnect. So yeah, this is Sequoia. Now, when you want to write to the blockchain, we mentioned earlier that we need three things, right? We need the provider, the account, and the contract itself. Now, this is the account I just connected to, and you know that any transaction you're executing, right, you need to sign the transaction, even if it's been abstracted somewhere, but signing is still being done, right, by something or somebody. Now, this account is what is responsible for signing the transactions and paying the gas fee. Remember, our ABI has this entry point called add to do, right? So this is the function or the entry point we are working with. And then this is our gas fee, which is very low. So if I sign now, yeah, this is going to load. Oh, wow. Okay. And that's it. So to do added successfully. So it might take a while to reflect because, of course, it's the blockchain. So you know how it takes like some time for a transaction to finalize. But let's just wait. We'll continue with other things. When we come back and refresh, it should pop up. Right? Now, we just added a to-do to the blockchain. And I would like us to look at how we were able to do that. So when you come to the page.csx, that is exactly where we have this code. Now we have this add button. Where's our add button? This is our add button, right? And this add button is calling a function called add to do. So when you come here, you would see that first off, we're checking if there is any loose ends, there's any string or any any string that was probably, or space that was probably added to the inputs, right? And we trim that off. If there's any and we just ensure that there's actually text, right, in the inputs, right? We trim and then ensure that there's text. If there's no text, we just return, like kill the process. Now, we have this const calls here, and then we have our contract, similar to what we explained earlier. So remember, we have this use contract hook, which is responsible for compiling the contract, right? Instantiating the contract, basically. So it takes the ABI. Now, this ABI that we have here, right? Exported the ABI, and then we have this ABI here, ABI as to do ABI, then the address. Now, the address is the address of the contract, right? So we have this as a constant somewhere here. So if we go to constant and we go to index, this is the address of our contract. So, when we go back to page, so it takes just two arguments, the ABI and also the contract. So we have the contract now. The contract is ready. And then all we need to do is to populate the contract and get our call data ready, right? So it can be multiple calls you're sending at once or just one call, right? So we're saying contracts. This is just to ensure that if contract is optional, we just ignore that. If it's not, if there's no contract, ignore that. If there's contracts, then we populate, right? We call the name of the entry point, which is add to do, and then the input, right? So the input is the argument. So what are we expecting? If we go to the ABI and we go to add to do, we're expecting the to do description, which is a felt 252, and felt 252 shouldn't be greater than 31 characters, right? That's like the max. The max is 31 characters. So this is what we're passing over here. When you come here, input as input, right, in an array. So if this entry point was accepting more data or more arguments, just add like a comma and we proceed with that. So if calls, right, if this calls is ready, then we want to await send async. Remember, when you want to send, you use the send async. Now, the send async is coming from use send transaction, right? And we also have is pending. So you'll be wondering why calls is an empty array here. This is done this way because we want to click on a button. We want an action to be done. We want an event to be triggered before we send the transaction. So if I wanted this to just happen immediately, the user mounts on this page, then there will be no need for me to add this. I'll just copy this call and then I put it inside here, right? Put it inside this array. And then we just call send async without passing any of these calls. So it's just going to be something like just we'll have something like this. We'll comment out this and we have send async, right? And then that's it. So once you just click, then we call the data. We send the data to the blockchain, but we don't want to do that. We actually need the user to type in the input box and get the user's text before we proceed with sending the transaction or making the call and invoking the call, right? So that's why we have this way. So you can just set it as an empty array, right? And yeah, so when the call is ready, right, that's the argument is ready, then we send async. We await this. When this is done, then we alert to do added successfully. Right, so it's that simple. With Starknet React, it's actually not difficult to read and write to the blockchain. Then we have the remove to do. So if you want to delete it to do, same thing, right? We compute our call and the name of the entry point. So the delete to do is expecting. What is delete to do expecting? Delete to do is expecting the to do index, right, which is an integer and is of type U64, right? So if we go back to page.csx, we have the contracts that populate here, the entry point, and then the argument, which is the ID. Same thing, it's a mutation. We are reading when you're changing or you're modifying or you're altering the blockchain. So you have to use the send, right? You're sending something. So we do the same thing again, send, and then we make our calls. And we pass in our calls rather, which is a single call. Remember, it can take multiple calls. And once this is resolved, this promise is resolved, then we alert to do deleted successfully. Now, the same thing to toggle the status. So if you want to mark your to-do as completed, we are using the complete to-do, right? And when you come over here, you would see that when you click on this button, X button, we are calling the remove to do, and we're passing the ID, which is a number. And same thing to toggle the status, because you need the ID of the to do you're trying to toggle or delete, right? Now, it's that simple, honestly. I think the last thing we have to look at here is reading from the blockchain, right? Using the Starknet React library. So to read from the blockchain using Starknet React, you call the use read contract hook. It's just you calling hooks here and there, right? So it requires certain arguments from us. The first argument is the ABI, which is of course, we're familiar with our ABI now, the to-do ABI. Then the address. Okay. So the address, right? So the to-do contract address, and then the function name, which is the entry point, gets to do underscore list. Then the args, right? This stands for arguments. So if your read function is expecting if your read function is expecting some arguments, right, then you can pass that here. Else you just pass args as empty array, right? And then if you log this, you'll see that we have some data over here. Where's our to do? What is this? Import exports. Is there anywhere we tampered with our imports? I don't think so. Start with npm run there. Okay, right. So join Starknet community has finalized, and we have that just here, right? So if we go back to the console, we have this array, and how many items do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So we have 4 items here. This is the first, this is the third. So it's coming this way. You have to convert it, yeah, to a readable text, right? So basically, this use read contract returns the data, and then you could also use its fetching to know if it is loading or it's done loading, right? So what I just did, we have a state here called to-dos, and we're setting to-dos. So if data, and data is an array, of course, then we want to look through the data, and here we're just formatting the data we're getting back. So to-do .id as string, and then text. You could use this from Starknet to convert your hex or your felt, your hex values to decode them to human readable text, right? So short string decode short string, right? So short string, because we're using a felt, of course. So to do description dot to string. So this is going to decode it, and then we have status. This is also going to we need the same thing to decode our status, because our status is a string, right? It's not a boolean, pending or completed, right? And that is it basically to read from the contract. So I'm going to push this code. You can play around with it, go through it, try to understand, build something off it, get your contract address, something different, right? The contracts you've been writing before, just try to, do something else, right, with the existing code we have, which shouldn't be a big issue, because you already have like a guide, you have something to look at, right? So it shouldn't be a major a major issue to find your way around it. All right, guys. So we've come to the end of the class, guys. I didn't get any question from you guys, so I want to believe that we're all good. We're all good then, right? But then again, if you have questions, you could always send me a message on where can you even send me a message? Telegram. You can send a message on Telegram or on X, right? So if you have any question and you need help trying to spin up any of the things we mentioned, right? And thank you so much for your time, guys. Do have a lovely day ahead.